explore listing things that we are not for the purpose of like exposing them, and maybe they'll come off, like identifying or listing some things that are not our essence.
I think it's really important in we're always discovering who we're not. Every time we look into who we truly are, you discover who you're not. Every time. Anytime you start to really truly see your essence, you go, I can no longer see this and just accept it. Mm-hmm. I can no longer identify in this thing and just accept it as it is. Isn't that true? Mm-hmm. You realize something about yourself and you're like, crap. I cannot any longer identify as this other thing. Yeah. So the big thing is, and we will absolutely do that throughout the course of this time together, but what I want for you, each one of you, is where you are. Each one of you knows what you're experiencing. And a lot of you have this experience that you're having, but you have a knowledge that isn't lining up with the experience that you're having. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to say, this is what I'm experiencing, or have past tense experienced, I understand this. Every time we begin to reveal truly who you are, and we're able to have this conversation, even if I have to repeat myself a million times to you, right? Every time there's another layer, even if it's a small layer that's coming off of who you are not. It's revelation is the revealing of what's underneath of all these things that you've covered the truest essence of who you are up with. It is continually revealing. It's pulling back the layers that you are not to reveal Christ in you. Christ, the Christ, the Christ, you are the Christ. You are the Christ. You are the Christ. Which I think Austin had a question. I think this was Austin's question. Sometimes I have a hard time saying that I'm the Christ because I don't feel like it. Other times it's easy for me to say it because I do feel it. I don't like to say I'm the resurrection and the life unless I'm feeling like I am. If I feel like ego, I don't want to say it. Yeah, that's I think that was yours. That was me. Mm-hmm. I feel like ego, I don't want to say it. Yeah. You're so oftentimes your own hometown, aren't you? Jesus, prophet is without honor except in his own town. Humanity is so oftentimes their own hometown. You are your worst critic, your worst judge. Yeah. So many people are trying to escape their hometown to go somewhere else where they're not known. I've had so many people say to me, they say, well, I feel like if I could just go to another town, another city, then maybe I wouldn't be known, maybe I could start over and I could really be the expression that Christ has for me. So this will never happen. No. But because you'll get there, and you won't know anyone, but I don't know anyone, they say. Yeah, but as soon as you get there, you will know someone. Someone will know you, and the next time you see them, they will make everything that they think about you will be based on that first experience they had of you. Yeah. This is how the mind works. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's truly not present. It's always judging according to the last experience. Mm-hmm. If you're judging me based on your last experience with me, you're gonna miss the gift that's before you entirely. Robert's laughing.
So true. So true.
Because you really honestly never know what to expect. I don't know what to expect. There's nothing here there's no expectation, there's no plan in place. It's just what's rising up. What's rising up. What's rising up. So, but you are oftentimes your own hometown. You are oftentimes the one that is continually saying to self, who am I? I can't do this. I can't say this. I could never say this to my family. I could never express this to my family. That you might appear to be a psychotic individual that believes you are the Christ. Mm-hmm. You are the Christ. Every one of you is the Christ. Yeah. You are the Christ. I think it is absolutely hilarious how many of you guys grew up within Christianity? maybe you're still even identifying as the label. I think the vast majority of the audience here today has probably grown up within Christianity. It's a mistake to identify Christ with Christianity and Christianity with Christ. It is a mistake. Jesus Christ came to reveal who you have always been.
Yeah.
Jesus awakened to the Christ to reveal who you have always been. As he is, so are you in this world. And I find it sad that there are so many scriptures within their own holy text that says, as he is, so are you in this world, and then yet will kick you out for saying, I'm the Christ. How dare you say that you're equal to God? Jesus did not consider it robbery to be called equal to God. It is not robbery. Matter of fact, it's the opposite. It's false humility and robbery to think that you're not equal with God. Born of God. Born of God. Aren't you? So if I was going to start, I'd just start right here. I ask, what is truth? What is truth? What is truth, Robert?
I don't know.
Okay, great answer.
Pretty genuine. I genuinely
That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
What is truth? Anyone else? What is truth? Online or here? Kaylee?
Truth is what really is. Truth is like the substance of God, of us.
Okay. What does this mean? We often are talking about something and we're using language, but then I say, what does this mean? And then we try to use the same language to define what we just said. This is what happens a lot of times. So it's a great answer. But what does this mean? What is truth? Truth is I don't need to continue that. That it just is. It just is. Truth just is. The truth isn't something that can be added to. It's not something that can be taken away from. You've heard me say this for students of mine. I've heard me say this so many times over. The truth isn't something that can be added to or taken away from. It is. Truth is whether you believe it or not. It just is. This is the reason why Jesus Christ could say, I am the truth. When you have nothing left, I said this in a recent class, I don't remember when it was, but Christ is the place where there's nothing left to detach from. The Christ is the place where there's nothing left to detach from. So if truth is this thing, is this essence that just is, fills everything, it is filling everything continually with itself. Isn't it? I love how Jesus calls the little children to him and says, come here, little children. And they come to him and he's loving the little kids, and he looks at the rich young ruler who comes, and he's like, after just praising these children, the rich young ruler has all this money, has all this influence and affluence. And he says, you lack one thing. Go sell everything you have, and then you can come be my disciple. See, he had attached to his identity was in this body that had done something or created all this wealth. his identity was in things outside of him, and so he was having a very difficult time letting go of that thing. He could not let go of this thing because he was identifying in something outside of who he truly is. And when I say outside of who he truly is, anytime you identify as a form, everything will be outside of you. But when you realize who you truly are, you realize it all is within you. The problem that you're facing, Austin, is that you're remembering who you have been. Anytime I feel like ego, you're just remembering who you have been. You're in that moment, you're identified by the story that is Austin. This is what every hometown does. This is what, every time you go home and you have Thanksgiving with your family, this is what they do. I know you. This is who you are. This is who you've always been. This is my idea of who you are. This is the narrative. And you go, and if you aren't fully filling that narrative that they created in their mind about you, they go, what's wrong with you?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Something's wrong with you. I don't even know who you are anymore. Or they'll say, well, are you depressed? Are you on drugs? What's happening? What is going on? Who are you? That's what they did to Jesus, and they tried to lock him up. And a big intervention with Jesus, didn't they? They did. They said Jesus has lost his mind. He's entered into Ekstasis. He's lost his mind. And he truly had. It truly had. His mind was lost, and he discovered the Christ. See, your mind will always tie you to your past, to the narrative, to the story.
Yeah.
It'll tie you to your ethnicity. It'll tie you to to your race. It'll tie you to your sexuality. It'll tie you to your sex. It'll tie you to the physical body. It'll tie you to all the thoughts that you have about you. It'll tie you to the thoughts that other people have about you. The mind is continually wanting to attach to all these things outside. Outside. This is who I am. And so when you say you feel like ego, what you're literally saying is this. You're saying, I am my past. I am still identifying as this. When I go home, I can't be as free as I am when I'm in Virginia. I feel free in Virginia. I don't feel like I'm being defined by someone else in Virginia. I feel free to be able to be whatever expression is coming out of me in that moment, right?
Yeah.
When you go home, you don't feel that way. When you go home, you are feeling the pressure of parents that are clouding that are creating this dynamic in you where you are trying to now break free of their perception of you.
Yeah.
It's like you're in jail. You're like
Yeah.
planning your jailbreak.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, well, a week. It was good to be with my family for a week, but I can't wait. How many of you guys have experienced that before?
Yeah.
This is because you're still identified as your past. When you truly transcend that thing, you no longer have the ability to even, your mind does not go back to that place. And in the transcending of your own narrative, of the narrative, what you created, your story is different than what your parents think about you. Right. The narrative that they have is very different than the narrative that you have created within your own mind, but neither one of them are truth. There might be some facts in there. There might be some things that you have done past tense, but none of them are truth. It's not true. There's not one thing that you feel that you've experienced that has been true. I'm going to say this again. There's not one thing that you feel that you've experienced that has been true. What I mean is the narrative that you create about that is not true. The only thing that is true is the one that is having the experience. The question is, are you present to have the experience? Are you really there? Right now, I'm not saying these things. I don't want your mind to churn. I want your mind to churn. I want you to think. Don't get caught up in thinking. You were supposed to leave your mind outside. I'm going to take a deep breath. Oftentimes when people are wanting to say things like, I am the Christ, when you no longer want to say it, that is when you probably have transcended the reality of this, not the reality, but the past tense you. When you no longer are having the thought, should I or should I not, that's when it'll come out and it'll just be real.
Yeah.
It just is. It's not something I'm having to think. I'm not trying to talk myself into it. I'm not having to say this 1,000 times and repeat my daily affirmations to convince myself that I'm the Christ.
Yeah.
I am the Christ, today I will succeed. I am the Christ, today I will create. I am the Christ.
Yeah.
You say I am the Christ and they say, no, you're not, you're Austin. You go, but I feel like I'm the Christ. No, you're not feeling like anything. You're trying to talk yourself into something. My mom comes to me and she says something about the Bible, and just overflow out of my mouth comes, you read the scriptures because in them you think you find life, but they're the ones that are testifying of me. Here I am standing before you, you don't recognize me. And she just gives me the look. But it just can't, it was a reality.
Okay.
It's 100% reality. It wasn't something I was thinking of or trying to create or wanting to. This is just it just is. And each one of us can say this is truth. It's not adding to you. You're not here today to become something. You cannot become who you already are. It's impossible. It's impossible. You can only realize who you are. Awakening to who you are. You can't become it. No amount of work that you do, no amount of meditation, no amount of anything that you do can ever create this where you become something that you already are. Is that a question?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't find it difficult to experience who I really am. I find it, let me put it this way. It's like I feel torn in two. Like there's a part of me that wants peace. And then when I start to taste it, I'm like, but what about like desire? And like, what about suffering? It's almost like I'm in love with like suffering, or like I'm just afraid of losing anything at all. So it's like what if I give in to contentment and then I don't have desire, and then like nothing happens in my life, you know? And it's like, what about my desire to like make money, or like, you know, travel, or my desire to like have a beautiful wife, or like any of these things? It's like, I feel like I'm giving up on them when I go into bliss, contentment, or like, or I'm giving up on like, what about the journey of Robert? Like Robert doesn't exist. Like, you know,
Life in terms of Robert.
it sounds like what Robert was kind of like this, like fun joke this whole time.
That's so
And it's like kind of like, for me at least, it like creates like a sadness and like a fear of experiencing who I really am. So the difficulty is not in experiencing it, but purpose in like allowing myself to go there because it freaks me out.
This is good. This is good. And the reason it's good is because I think everyone's probably experienced this.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think everyone has experienced this to some degree, the feeling of maybe not being in control, of losing the self that you've identified with this entire existence that you've been conscious of, losing that self. Unless a man loses his life, he won't find it. And so, yeah, who is Robert? Robert is not a joke. Robert's just a name. Robert's like the label on the back of your shirt. Just a name. Just a name. I think we've all experienced this at some point. I know there were definitely moments where I felt to myself, I'm like really, especially during the disappearance, like when I really felt like I was disappearing, where Silas was really vanishing. It's like, who is this? It's no longer feeling any desire, being so content and satisfied that it doesn't matter, like no longer looking for anything, needing anything. I've said so many times over, if this body was butt naked alone in the field, I would not be any less I would not feel like I had less. There's nothing that I claim ownership over. There's nothing that I fear to lose. There's no self here to grab a hold of it any longer. And so it's very difficult for someone that is still wanting to claim ownership to comprehend. It's a very difficult thing. So, but the one that you're recognizing already, the one that's trying to comprehend this, the one that is afraid. Who is the one that is afraid to lose?
The one that's identified with, with the narrative, the story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I want to complete the story. I don't want to give up on the story and transcend it. I want to be the hero of this like human journey, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to be a guru.
Well, but the thing is that it's not about it's not about whether you teach anything or not. I think we're all teachers.
I just mean, act like
just
just be nothing, like just spacious.
Only in the letting go of. This is one of the things that I often share. Only in the letting go of, for instance, only in the letting go of identification with your body do you actually begin to enjoy it. As long as you're hanging on to the identification in it, it'll create both misery and pleasure. And there will be moments of pleasure, typically immediately followed by moments of great heartache and misery. Isn't it true?
Yeah.
When you identify in the story, you fall in love. The love of my life. How many of you have had the love of your life, only to find out that it wasn't actually the love of your life? I am heartbroken. Who is the one that is heartbroken? And see, what I'm saying is, what at one point created, and in that moment, the you that was there in that moment would have said, Robert would have said, "This is what I've been looking for my whole life."
Yeah.
Right. That's what I've been looking for my whole life. And a year goes by, and now I'm completely heartbroken because the thing that I thought I was looking for my whole life, I realized this is not what I was looking for my whole life. And I fell in love, but now I'm no longer in love because the love was a concept. Because the narrative is a concept. And so the love that you were experiencing was a concept. And so along with the joy that you created out of that concept also would come pain that you created out of the concept. Anytime I can add something to myself, I can also lose that thing. This is adulting. This is adult. So adultery is adding something to yourself, to your truest essence. The essence, the Christ, is the place where there's nothing left to detach from. It's the place of isness and of allness. This isness, the fullness. Fullness is emptiness, emptiness is fullness. Okay, it's one and the same. When you're actually able to discover the place where you're empty of thought, this is the place when you realize fullness. Because at this place, you're realizing that the thought does not define who I am. I am not the narrative. Not the narrative. And so now you're actually able to enjoy and create and play. Now the world that you see around you, you realize you fill, and so you're able to play within it as if it's a playground, instead of enjoying it just partially. Because you're so attached to the narrative that you're afraid, if I play too hard, I might hurt myself. If I go too hard, if I go full, and even today, if I go full in and I really expose myself and give all of myself in a question, maybe then I might hurt myself, or my ego might be really flawed or hurt, or I might fall off the slide, or I might, you understand what I'm saying? And so instead of going all in, really playing hard on the playground of that we've been given, that we feel, that came out of who we are, we think we're just one person in the playground. And that one person in the playground, that one person in creation needs to have the narrative, needs to create something to be desired. If I have no narrative, if I have no ego, if I have no self if I'm not what I've done, then no one will ever see me as successful. If I'm not my looks, then no one will ever see me as handsome. No, how will I ever attract? This is when you really start to let go, though. This is good. It's a good place. So a lot of you guys have been frustrated right here in one of these places, whether it's in relation to your body, your mind, and various attachments. You realize anytime you have pain, it's an opportunity to transcend that attachment. It's an opportunity to let go and transcend the conceptualized you in that moment. And that's up. Pain is an opportunity to. There is a place, and you don't need to be afraid of the place, because it's you. The ego is always afraid because it means it's death. It's afraid of awakening because it means that it is dying. But in its death, you're realizing the truest happiness and the truest joy and the truest contentment, the truest satisfaction. And in this place, if you want to create desire, create desire. Play, but the desire is not controlling you.
Okay.
You're creating the desire.
Yeah. I mean, what just happened right now was I had a moment of like seeing myself in you talking to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Good.
But then that just made me really sad because it made me feel like, you know what I'm saying? Like it just triggered this like, oh, like it's like being it's freaky. You know, it's like, oh shit, like this isn't what I thought it was, you know? And then you got that glint in your eye where it's like the divine is like winking at you, loving you, laughing at you a little bit, and it's just like this weird like, oh god, like it's like the veil's being torn away, and it's just for me it's like too much, you know? It's like I retract back into like,
For me.
yeah, I mean, just so everyone here, I don't mind you knowing, is like I went and did ayahuasca recently and was down in Costa Rica, like high out of my mind.
Yeah.
And like I saw myself in everybody. I saw that our bodies are illusory, and I saw like so much. And by the end of the first night, I was clinging to my mattress, like just begging for it to end so I could just be a person again. And like I really like being myself, even though there's a lot of suffering and like inner turmoil involved. I'm still very much attached to it, and it's like even the bliss is like a negative for me. I don't know why though exactly, but I guess it's just it feels sad to me that like everything we thought was so real is actually just made up.
Sure.
So I guess it leaves me wondering like what's really real, and
But just you.
God,
Just you. the thing that we need to recognize, and these are great. I love these. I love this exploration of these questions, because there's two things happening. There's Robert, this name in the story, that's talking about who he really is, and then saying he's really afraid of who he really is. And he's really afraid of the experiences that he's had in those moments when you saw yourself, your true Atman, the true self, the true divine essence. Freaks me out. Because now, who am I?
Yeah.
But see, that's the mind that's trying to be carried into the experience. It's saying, who am I? When you realize that this is no longer an experience, then you're no longer afraid of it.
I guess it feels like the stripping away of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
If there was never a problem to begin with, and there's no solution, the whole journey is an illusion. It's like forgetting who you are just to remember who you are. And it's like there's a journey in it. So I guess the meaning is in the experience itself, like of journeying, but there's no meaning proper. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
I don't mean to take up a lot of time.
No, so we're not in a rush.
Okay.
Not in a rush.
Time.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here. If you have questions online, please do me a favor. And if you have questions during these dialogues, please write them down so you don't forget them, or jot them down, because what ends up happening is you guys raise your hand and I call and you're like, oh, don't remember what it was. Write it down. So many of you are still in this place where your mind is still controlling everything. And so it's real easy. You think you can remember it, but then your mind goes on this journey and it jogs around and it's listening to all these other information. It's hearing all this stuff. And by the time we get back to you, you're like, I don't even remember what it was, even though it was a really important question to you at that moment. So please just jot it down. Jot it down. That way you make sure you have it still.
Keely has a question.
Yeah, no, I'm not done with him. We're still in search for meaning, and we're continually searching for belonging.
Yeah.
And we want to belong, we want to be accepted, we want to have meaning and value. And because we have purely defined ourselves as the narrative, as the name, as this form, we, in that place of identification, it's really easy for you to feel like you're losing all of who you are, all of your dreams, all of your desires. Everything's being lost.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying to you is this, is that in the discovery of the truth, you actually get to finally find those things within yourself. It's not something that needs to be lost. The body, when you transcend the body, you realize you are not the body. The body becomes beautiful, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And we're no longer afraid of the body. And we're no longer judging others for their body. It's just beautiful. All the pressure's off. I'm not the body. I'm not the body. As long as we're identifying by a body, we go on placing all this law upon ourselves and the body, and we live under constant shame, constant guilt in association with the body, constant self-judgment, and therefore, if I'm judging myself, I will always, always, always judge others. If you're placing judgment on others, it's because you're first placing judgment on yourself. Anytime I talk with anyone in mentorship, when I mentor people, and they always come and they say, well, so-and-so says this, I always go, well, then you're first judging you. What are you judging yourself? You're judging yourself by the same standard. I'm not interested in what they're saying about you. Let's talk about what you're saying about yourself.
Yeah.
Because it's a self-judgment. Anytime you point the finger at someone else, you blame someone else, you're still, first of all, you're identifying as a person, as a persona. But even beyond that, it's you are judging yourself for the same things. You've placed all this law upon you that says, I cannot do these things, I will never do these things. And if they do them, they're wrong. So this is just one little instance of the body. Now, it's really easy for me to say, Joe, just let go of the body. And then we find out maybe it's more difficult than that. Maybe it's not as easy just to go, oh, yeah, I'm not a body. I think all of you would say, I'm not a body. But then as soon as sickness comes, you go, I'm sick.
Yeah.
I'm in all this pain, I'm in all this misery, I'm sick. Are you the body? No, I'm not the body. Okay. This is fine. This is nothing wrong. It's an opportunity. The pain, the sickness is an opportunity for you to realize something more about who you are not. It's there to help you realize more of who you are not. It's not there to people say, well, I'm clearly the body because I'm having this experience. And so what in essence they're saying is, I am sickness. I am sick. I am sickness. Does the sickness leave? Yes. So if the sickness leaves and you are that sickness, then I guess you're gone.
Right.
I guess you no longer exist. You find out you're not the sickness. You're not sick. You've never been sick. The sickness an illusion then? Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're able to begin to transcend that. This is transformation. This is transfiguration. This is the place of transcending the physical form, where you no longer are moved. It's not real. It's not real. Just one example. The thing is, Robert, this name and the story, wants to have these experiences because Robert, the name and the story, is in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And the mind is always wanting to be everywhere but here.
Right.
Who I am is my past. And my past I want to project into the future. And I want to discover what's out there for me. These are my dreams. These are the things that I want. And if I just have a little longer as Robert, then I could accomplish a couple of these things. I'm so close. If I just had a little longer as Robert, then I could make my first $1 million. If I just have a little longer as Robert, then I could find that supermodel wife. If I just have a little longer as Robert, then I could really. And you get all those things, and then what you find is that you've just added a bunch more stuff to Robert. It's creating more misery. Because as long as you're identified as the one that can have it, it will also be identified as the one that can lose it. And so having it's great. What I'm saying is when you transcend the idea, the concept, then you have it, but you're not afraid of losing it. So you can actually play with it. You can actually have fun with it for the first time. And you realize you're not your body. Then now for the first time, you're actually able to be able to enjoy it without fear of loss. When you realize that you are life, you go skydiving. Why? Because you realize there is no death. And so you're not afraid to go skydiving anymore. I'm afraid to go skydiving because I believe in death. I'm living in this duality. Ego could die. My body, who I am, could die. No, who you are can never die. There's no death to life. Life has never experienced death.
Yeah.
Life just is. Well, we create these illusionary things every time we identify as a form, as a concept. Conceptualized self continually will live in constant duality. I am this, you are that, and I will always either fight against or always have something to say about that and about this. Life and death, love and hate, light and darkness, going back and forth. There is none of it. Darkness is just there because your eyes are closed. Death is just the revealing of life. Death is not death. The moment somebody dies, they're still in the exact same place that they were consciously. There's no difference. The only difference is they don't have a physical form to identify in that moment. their story has been halted. That's a very scary thing to someone that is identified as an ego for their entire existence. Their entire conscious existence identified as an ego. Now it's gone. Now who am I? Wouldn't you rather die? Realize your true life so that you never have to lose it?
Hey guys, thanks for watching our video. Give us a thumbs up, comment, thoughts, questions in the section below. Let us know what you want to hear from us. Subscribe to our channel for more life-changing content. And as always, check the section below for our website, for live events, where we'll be, what we're up to, more about us, and our online school website is listed below as well. We love you. We're glad you're here. We want to hear from you. We're in this with you.